Hi, this is Nick Ragone with This Date in History. It was 55 years ago this week that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was tragically assassinated while in Memphis, Tennessee. He was there to support striking sanitation workers in their struggle for a livable wage and safer working conditions. It was also the same week when he would deliver his famous and somewhat impromptu "I've Been to the Mountaintop" speech, one of the greatest pieces of oration in American history. And in my opinion, one of the most important and sometimes even overlooked speeches of the 20th century. Amazingly, Dr. King was actually feeling under the weather that day, exhausted and fighting the effects of a fever, and had asked his best friend and closest advisor, Ralph Abernathy, to substitute for him. But when Abernathy arrived at the Mason Temple and saw the overflow crowd, and as he put it, saw the look of disappointment on the people's faces when they realized Dr. King wouldn't be speaking, he called Reverend King and suggested he come to the temple. And what followed was one of the most electric and inspiring 40 minutes of Dr. King's career. It's hard to think of another speech more poignant and more inspiring and more emotionally committed, more fitted for the times, and tragically more heartbreaking than his words that stormy night to the overflowing crowd at Mason Temple. For a man gifted with a preternatural ability to turn words into poetry, poetry into imagery, and imagery into inspiration, it was 40 minutes of truly otherworldly oration, Dr. King at his transcendent best. The speech was both a look backwards and a look forward, an intellectual tour de force through history and the Bible, and tragically clairvoyant about the personal danger that lay ahead. At one point, he emphatically implored America, actually lectured is more like it, to live up to the promise of the sacred words in the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution.
All we say to America is be true to what you said on paper. If I lived in China or even Russia or any totalitarian country, maybe I could understand some of these illegal injunctions. Maybe I could understand the denial of certain basic First Amendment privileges because they haven't committed themselves to that over there. But somewhere I read of the freedom of assembly. Somewhere I read of the freedom of speech. Somewhere I read of the freedom of press. Somewhere I read that the greatness of America is the right to protest far right.
Though the language sharper and the tone more incredulous, King's admonition was not dissimilar from Lincoln's a century earlier at Gettysburg, when he revealed towards the end of his brief speech that the Civil War would provide a new birth of freedom, a tacit and long overdue admission by the great emancipator that the nation hadn't lived up to the supposedly self-evident truths that all men are created equal, words so cherished in the Declaration of Independence. That wasn't the only similarity to Lincoln at Gettysburg. It's no longer a choice between violence and nonviolence in this world, said Dr. King that night. It's nonviolence or non-existence, a sentiment not dissimilar from Lincoln's closing at Gettysburg, where he resolved that the government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth. Exhausted and drained, he closed with one of the most stirring, emphatic, and sadly prophetic rhetorical flourishes in the history of the spoken word.
Well, I don't know what will happen now. We've got some difficult days ahead. But it really doesn't matter with me now, because I've been to the mountaintop. I don't mind. Like anybody, I would like to live a long life. Longevity has its place. But I'm not concerned about that now. I just want to do God's will. And He's allowed me to go up to the mountain. And I've looked over and I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land. So I'm happy tonight, I'm not worried about anything. I'm not fearing any man. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord.
Witnesses say they saw tears streaming down Dr. King's face when he sat down. Tragically, he would be assassinated less than 24 hours later.